Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to talk about inflation. Shocking. Uh, you know, honestly, the fact that people in Washington call this woman a master strategist and legislator, truly beyond me. Nancy Pelosi went on the Sunday shows yesterday and openly said, we don't want to talk about inflation. Cue the tsunami of Republican TV commercials that are going to be coming immediately with this.
And the fact is that when I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard him there, we have to change that subject. Inflation is a global phenomenon. Yes. The EU, the European Union, the UK, the British have higher inflation rate than we do here. It's not, the fight is not about inflation. It's about the cost of living.
Wait, what? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not an economist. I'm pretty sure inflation and the cost of living are kind of the same thing. Where do you start? Where do you even start? First of all, like I said, she just handed Republicans a just gold mine. You're going to see Nancy Pelosi on loop saying we need to change the topic. And if you're the average voter who's not diehard like you and me, and you're seeing those commercials on a loop that Democrats want to change the topic from inflation, yeah, it's going to make you want to vote against Democrats. So awesome messaging and leadership from Nancy Pelosi. But honestly, she's right. It is a global phenomenon. There's not a ton any president can do on terms of the supply side issue, et cetera, et cetera. But as I've outlined over and over and over again, Biden could have done more on inflation. The Democratic Party could have done more on inflation. Let me show you something. Goldman, buybacks are back. Goldman Sachs, buybacks are back. Corporates are on pace to repurchase over $1.1 trillion of U.S. stocks this year, which will go down as the most in U.S. history of the stock market. Last week was very active week. We estimate 25% of the S&P 500 are currently in their full open window. Companies are buying $1.1 trillion worth of their stock back. Why are they doing that? Because they're making disgusting, sickening profits off of you. They are price gouging. This inflation has never been, oh, companies, they're getting higher costs on their end, so they're just passing it off. Hell, the Federal Reserve Chair, Powell, under questioning from Elizabeth Warren a couple months ago, Warren made these same points that they're price gouging. And he said, well, yeah, they're price gouging because they can.
And at the same time, charging more on top of that to fatten their profit margins.
That could be right. It could also just be, though, that demand is incredibly strong, and that they're raising prices because they can.
Do you hear Nancy Pelosi talking about that at all? Do you hear the Democratic Party talking about that at all? You've heard Biden kind of talk about it. Is there, I don't know, anything that the Democratic Party, that Joe Biden can do about it? Or at least pretend you're trying to do something about it? Maybe you could push legislation to make this illegal for them to be buying back their stock while profiting at a certain margin. Maybe Joe Biden, as I've said over and over again, could have pulled the federal subsidies from fossil fuel companies. We give $15 billion in fossil fuel subsidies a month. Excuse me, a year. Feels like a month. A year. Nothing. Biden has literally written letters in harshly toned language, kindly asking the fossil fuel companies to lower prices. I mean, is this the Onion? She's going on, oh no, we shouldn't talk about inflation. We need to talk about the cost of living. Let's talk about the cost of living. Rent, housing, it's been going up for years, way before this housing, the latest year or two of inflation. It's called gentrification. Let's talk about the cost of living. Why is it going up? Why is gentrification happening? Because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have sold our local cities out to real estate developers who buy them off. So real estate developers have had run of the house. They get to do whatever they want. And you have seen massive gentrification and pricing out people who live and are from communities across America: Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, DC, New York City. I mean, name your city, Philadelphia. The Democratic Party has allowed that to happen. The Democratic Party has allowed cost of living to go up. Sure, the government can't do everything. We can't, totally dictate what corporations can and cannot do. I wish we could. That's why I'm a socialist. But you certainly could push legislation and fight for it to rein in these corporations. And you could pull the free money, the corporate welfare you're getting from these corporations, i.e., pass legislation against these stock buybacks, pull the federal subsidies for fossil fuel companies. Hell, pull the federal subsidies for pharmaceutical companies, pull the federal subsidies for the Wall Street banks. All of them are getting free money, while the Democratic Party is wringing their hands about how we're going to pay for it on health care and free college. Noticeably, Nancy Pelosi, you just saw the clip where she says we have to change the subject. Look at her people edited that out when they reposted her clips from this Sunday show interview. Let's take a look.
Social Security and Medicare are on the line. A woman's right to choose is on the line. The planet is on the line. Issues that relate to prescription drugs. Yes. For years, we've been trying to get the secretary to negotiate for lower prices. We couldn't get it done until we had the Democratic president and a strong majority, enough in the Congress to get it done. The fight is not about inflation. It's about the cost of living.
Notice that? They took out the part where she says we got to change the subject. Even her people knew that she was handing Republicans a perfect line. Now, let's take a look at a different Democrat. I know a lot of people are upset he's a Democrat. Let's take a look at Bernie Sanders' messaging on the Sunday shows yesterday. See if you notice a difference.
At a time when working families are struggling, having a hard time filling up their gas tanks, paying for food, paying for prescription drugs. We are living in a nation today where the richest people are doing phenomenally well. And one of the reasons for inflation is the incredible level of corporate greed. Check out the profits of the oil companies, the drug companies, the food companies. Their sky-high profits are ripping off the American people. And there are studies out there that estimate that 50% of inflation has to do with corporate greed. So I think what the Democrats have got to say is we are going to stand with working people. We're prepared to take on the drug companies. We're prepared to take on the insurance companies and create an economy that works for all of us. Is the abortion issue important? Yes. But we have also got to focus on the struggles of working people to put food on their table.
Compare and contrast. Compare and contrast Pelosi versus Bernie on the Sunday shows. Okay? And then compare it to a suburban wine mom audience and working class people watching. The difference is, one, Pelosi is someone who will not speak a word about the corporations ripping you off, price gouging, et cetera. Why? Because those same corporations, Pelosi and the Democratic Party, are currently begging their CEOs and wealthy people, please give us money. There's only a few weeks before the midterms. These corporate profiteers, these corporate price gougers are the people donating to the Democratic Party. And of course, the Republican Party. Let's not let them off the hook. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. Of course, yeah, maybe they'll, in passing, very gently talk about corporate price gouging, but not in the way Bernie talked about it. Bernie can't talk about it that way because he's not getting any money from those people. And hey, I've had my issues with Bernie. I don't like how he's played, diplomacy with Biden and never publicly went against Biden, never threatened to vote no on certain things. But he's able to talk and actually talk about these issues, and that price gouging is 50% of inflation, as he pointed out, because he's not at the mercy of these corporate bloodsuckers. Listen, Democratic Party, I think it's at this point and all but certainty they're going to lose the House. And at this point, I think it's a toss-up in the Senate. And they have themselves to blame. There was a lot more they could have done. Certainly could have done more than a $1,400 check during COVID. Biden abandoned the $15 minimum wage, citing the bullshit fairy tale of the parliamentarian says so. He abandoned a public option. He did not fight Joe Manchin on extending the child tax credit. He allowed Joe Manchin to block it. He could have used the full bully pulpit of the presidency to go on a holy crusade against Joe Manchin. People might be feeling different about the Democrats on the economy when polled. And who do you trust on the economy if they still had that child tax credit? Biden showed no leadership on that. So if you are in a swing state, get ready for that clip from Nancy Pelosi. We need to change the topic change the subject from inflation. You're going to be hammered with that on your TV and probably internet for the next few weeks.